So we finally have the full spoilers for chapter 15 of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, and based on what Boruto said to Kawaki, the MOMOSHIKI situation is way scarier than we initially thought. So we're gonna get to that one of course, but we also have the Matsuri Shinju versus Gaara, and also something very interesting regarding Kawaki's latent power level. So we have a lot to discuss, but of course we're gonna start from the top. Now the person on the cover is the Shinki Shinju, and the title for the chapter is A Fulfilling Life, which I think is in reference to Gaara, but we'll see. So yeah, the first page of the spoilers is pretty much Gaara versus the Matsuri Shinju, and it seems like he's trying to protect Shinki and his teammates using his sand. But just to be clear, the Matsuri Shinju isn't there for Shinki or his teammates or even Gaara for that matter. In fact, she outright says that she's looking for Boruto's associate, which would be Kashin Koji and maybe Orochimaru. So Gaara is pretty much just in the way, and I do find it interesting because she gives him the out to leave and says that she's not there looking for him and he can leave with the kids. But for some reason he still wanted to put up a fight, likely because it's an unknown enemy in his village, and it makes sense to some degree. But Gaara is critically wounded, so it does make sense for him to retreat at least, but he doesn't. And just before one of the Clawgrams devoured him, he ended up getting saved by Shinki, who then got devoured. And I do find it pretty crazy that he ended up saving Gaara by putting him in the sand shield, and even after Shinki got stuck being a tree, he's still protecting Gaara using the sand shield. And what's crazy about this is that Matsuri doesn't have the power to break the sand itself, so she had to leave Gaara as is. So either Shinki's sand is just one of the most broken defenses in the entire history of Naruto, or he's using some other mechanic, because she does mention something about a seal, and we know that Shinki does have the power to use seals. So it could be the case that it's not the sand itself that's protecting Gaara, but instead a sealing jutsu that's used in conjunction with the sand itself, which Shinki has done before. So we'll see what happens there. By the way guys, sorry about the noise, the rain is going crazy, so if you guys are hearing any crackling sounds, it's the rain in the background. So yeah, hopefully you guys can hear what I'm saying in the video. By the way, I'm not sure if I was clear enough before, but Gaara is still stuck in the sand at this point in time, because Shinki is the only one who can release it. So Gaara is currently dying within the sand shield, and they can't reach him to heal him. So pretty much his life is in the hands of a Shinju at this point in time, but we'll see how that plays out eventually. Now we also have this panel where the Shinki Shinju found Code spying on the Shinju. He pretty much pulled him from the Karmart looking square thing using his sand, which by the way confirms that the Shinki Shinju can use Shinki's sand ability, which is awesome and scary. Now Code is going crazy in this chapter because for some reason he thought he was stronger than the Shinjus, because that's the only reason that someone would behave in the way that he does in this chapter. So he pretty much goes on to question the Shinjus about why they're not going after Boruto and Kawaki since they're Otsutsuki, and he needs them to consume them so that the chakra fruit can be produced. Now Jura is so funny because he goes on to tell Code that if he's so obsessed with Boruto, he can go ahead and kill him if he wants to, since they only need Kawaki. And this pisses off Code for some reason, because he goes on to say like, who are you to tell me who I should kill and who I shouldn't kill? That's up to me to decide. And then he goes on to tell them that he's the one who's going to consume the chakra fruit and carry out Ishiki's will. And this doesn't really faze Jura, but he goes on to say something interesting, which is that chakra fruits contain dense energy and a mass containing genetic information of all life. What would happen if we were to consume it? Now this is weird and crazy at the same time. It's kind of the chicken and the egg situation in some sense, but it's not exactly the same thing, because the Ten Tails is the one who produces the chakra fruit. They create it. They are the ones who consolidate the power and form it into a chakra fruit. Why would they need to consume the same power they produced? It's just weird. At that point, like, why even produce the chakra fruit? Just keep the power and don't produce the chakra fruit. But maybe it's the case that they can't choose not to produce a chakra fruit. It's like the same thing with the karma, where the Otsuzukis can't decide not to resurrect in a body that they don't prefer to resurrect in, which is what happened to Ishiki. So maybe that's just genetically encoded into the Ten Tails that they have to produce a chakra fruit, so they can't decide not to. And maybe something interesting will happen if they do decide to consume it. So it's really crazy, but I do find it interesting. But we'll see how it plays out, of course. Now, of course, Code doesn't take too kindly to this declaration, and he's like, okay, let me attack you. And he tries to attack Jura through the claw mark with his claws, with his hand thing that he does. And Jura just slaps away his hand, like cuts it off without even moving. And it does seem as if he used the laser Biju bomb thing that he used on Himawari back in chapter 12, I believe. Or maybe it's something different, but he didn't even move a muscle, and Code lost a hand. Mind you, again, Code is greatly above Jigen in power level. So this dude Jura is crazy. Like, his power level is insane. Now Code then proceeded to use the claw mark to stop the bleeding of his right hand, and Jura then goes on to give him a new purpose, which is to kill Boruto and his associate, which will be Kashin Koji. And if he does succeed, he will receive the chakra fruit. Now I'm not sure if Jura is messing with Code because maybe he discovered what deceit is. He's still learning, so that could be the case. But it could also be the case that he's genuine, so I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens. Now this is where we get to the interesting part, which is the conversation between Boruto and Kawaki. So Kawaki pretty much approaches Boruto atop the Akage monument and questioned him about why he didn't reveal the truth about omnipotence and what Kawaki did to Naruto. And Boruto pretty much says that, yo, like, it doesn't make sense, it would just cause more confusion, and that's not the goal at this point in time. The goal is to defeat the humanoid Shinju. Now Kawaki then goes on to ask him what happened with Momoshiki and points out the fact that Boruto still can't control his karma. Boruto then goes on to say that about 2 years ago, when Master faced off against Code, I used my karma for the first time since leaving the village. That's when I felt it, feeling of being taken over by Momoshiki, something close to that. So this is crazy, by the way, because we didn't know that Boruto used his karma seal in his fight versus Code, because we always wondered how Boruto escaped after Sasuke charged into Code. I know it wasn't FTG because he learned that from Kashin Koji, so it made more sense that he either flew away or used the karma, and it does seem like that's what happened based on what's said in this chapter. Now the thing with Momoshiki is even crazier or weirder than we thought it was before, because Boruto said that he stopped being himself. It felt like he was dying even though he was still conscious. And since then, he hasn't used the karma seal. So it does seem like it's more than just Momoshiki coming forth and taking over Boruto's body. It seems like Boruto is ceasing to exist. But I don't think it's in the sense that Momoshiki is gaining more control of Boruto's body. I really do think that Momoshiki and Boruto are becoming one entity. So that's why he was still conscious, but it felt like he was dying. He was becoming someone else, but he was still there. He still had control. So I think people tend to forget that Boruto was literally merging his brainwaves with Momoshiki's prior to the time skip. So that didn't stop happening. But it does seem like the more Boruto uses the karma seal, the more this effect comes into play. But I guess we'll see. Now he also goes on to say that for the past 3 years, Momoshiki has been completely silent. It's possible that the karma seal activation is the trigger to bring him out. Now of course Kawaki is absolutely tweaking hearing this because that has been his biggest issue with Boruto this entire time. But Boruto then switches the conversation to the topic of Jura and the Shinju, and he pretty much goes on to say that they can't handle them through ordinary means, especially Jura. I can't deal with him on my own. So this confirms that Boruto isn't in fact stronger than Jura, which I already knew, and I told you guys this, but a lot of people disagreed. But here it is. By the way, he also tells Kawaki to kill him if he does go berserk with Momoshiki. So we're pretty much back to square one in chapter 61, I believe, when he told Kawaki to kill him, which Kawaki did indeed do. Okay, so we're gonna see what happens this time around. Now he then tells Kawaki that he needs to get stronger, and he goes on to point out that Kawaki still has Naruto sealed, and it would be better to release him so Naruto can train Kawaki. But he also then goes on to say that maybe that's not the best idea because we don't have enough time to go through the conventional means of training. And I do find this kind of ironic because if you go back to chapter 58, I believe, when they kind of did the sparring session, Kawaki wanted to take the quick route and the more vigorous route to gaining more power, and Boruto wanted to go the conventional route of a ninja to train and just get stronger. But now Boruto is like, yo, like, we don't have the time for that, bro. You need to get stronger now, immediately. And I'm not saying that this is some sort of contradiction in Boruto's like belief system, because Boruto did indeed get stronger by literally training. So it just shows that different training methods can apply to different situations. But yeah, it then goes on to tell Kawaki that he's going to tell him something that he would have figured out by himself later on. He then tells Kawaki to ask Kamado. He's been hiding your true power. He then goes on to say that on top of putting a limiter on your attack threshold, your defenses and restoration abilities could also be adjusted to surpass what they are now. And then you cue the Kawaki shocked Pikachu face, okay? But we also have Amado who seems to be watching Boruto through Kawaki's eyes. He also goes on to say that the reason why Amado did this is because he would be in trouble if Boruto died. Now this could mean multiple things, because if you assume that Amado did this while he believed that Kawaki was Boruto and that Boruto was Kawaki, it likely implies that he did this to protect Boruto because he thought that Boruto was Kawaki, the one who has the karma seal, to resurrect his daughter. But if that isn't the case and he did this when he replaced Kawaki's hand, it might simply be a method of control, which Boruto does kind of hint at later on in the chapter. So it could go either way, and I guess we'll see when the full chapter comes out. But yeah, Kawaki then goes on to tell Boruto that he still wants to kill everything related to the Otsutsuki, the Shinju, the Ten Tails, even Boruto and himself. They all must die. But for now, he's gonna work with Boruto to defeat the Shinju, a somewhat temporary truce per se. Boruto then smiles and says, "Don't drag me down, bro." And Kawaki replied saying, "Same to you, piece of trash," which is just absolutely insane, bro. But okay, it's fine. Yeah, that's it for the spoilers. There are some other things that I did leave out because I don't want to give you guys every single thing, okay? Wait until the chapter comes out. The chapter is gonna come out in a few days, okay? So then we can, go in depth on the full chapter in the review. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on the spoilers so far. What do you guys think about what's happening? And yeah, we'll discuss it in the comments. And also, guys, remember to join the Discord. The link will be down in the description or pinned somewhere. But yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.